if you don't understand why women are upset, like, maybe shut the fuck up and, like, let one of them, like, speak and tell you why this is insane. Like, if you're sitting here and you don't understand, like, if you know people that, like, don't understand why everyone's so mad, like, send them this fucking episode. Hello, and welcome back to Sarah Says So, your go-to show for women's sports news. Happy Friday, everyone. I've got a bunch of good stuff to talk about this week as usual, so I hope you're very excited. But of course, before we move forward, make sure you're following the show at Sarah Says So ETB on all of our socials, so Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Without any further ado, we're going to get into today's lineup. So a little bit of a shorter episode for you guys this week. We're going to start by following up on Jen Pawol's MLB debut before moving into some news from the NWSL and USA Gymnastics before a WNBA heavy second half, where we'll revisit what I am now calling the dildo debacle, talking power rankings, and Minnesota's playoff clinch, as well as Asia Wilson's standout game. So lots of good stuff to talk about, but we're going to get started really right off the bat with Jen Pawol's debut as the first female umpire in an MLB, game. And, like, to be super honest with you, I was absolutely thrilled. Like, she did a freaking phenomenal job. So, like, let's just, like, not get that twisted right away. And she's getting, like, absolutely just flamed because the first pitch that she called a strike and it was a ball. You know what? I don't give a flying fuck that she got the first pitch wrong. I'm sure. Do you know how much pressure that woman was probably feeling? Like, yes, that's your job now. Like, you're going to have to get used to the pressure, but, like, she's allowed to be human and, like, fuck up a call when the rest of the game, she was totally on the money. Her overall accuracy behind the plate was 93%, and she also had an overall consistency of 93% as well. Her relative accuracy was 1.4% below expected, so she has 2.2 fewer correct calls than the average umpire, but this is after literally one game. She's, like, if you're looking at the fact that she really only has one game to, like, pull these numbers from at all, she's doing really well. And so I really just, like, I need everyone to, like, chill the actual fuck out about this, because almost all of the reactions that I'm seeing are negative are all from, like, fans and from people on Twitter. The reactions from people that were actually in the game were largely very, very positive. The Braves manager, Rick Kranitz, said he went out there and he started hearing the crowd and he, like, was like, why is everyone, like, cheering, basically? And then he realized that Jen Pawol was coming out and, like, he reflected on being excited and, like, wanting to get the crowd into it. And as he was walking back to the dugout, he asked her how she was doing, and she said it's been a whirlwind, and he congratulated her and said that he, like, remembered his first game, like, being out there and everything, and, like, how intimidating that was, and that she handled herself really, really well. And he went on to say, it's always great to see things that are historic. It's only going to happen once ever in the history of this game. It's unbelievable. It's great. And then the Braves starting pitcher, Joey Wentz, was also asked about it, obviously, because, like, the starters and the GMs all spoke about it. And I mean, honestly, I would say, like, they're probably some of the most qualified people to speak on how the umpiring was, because they're the ones paying the most attention to it. But so Joey Wentz said that he tries not to focus on the zone, but that he thought Pawol's calls overall were good. The Marlins starter, Cal Quantrill, said, well, we certainly didn't call her up from single A ball, right? I'm sure she was well prepared, and I think part of the game moving forward is if this is normal, then we're going to treat it normal too. I thought it was fine, and I think she did a quality job. I think she should be very proud of herself, and it's kind of a cool little thing to be a part of it, but yeah, just another day. I know it's a big day for her, but I think part of respecting that is just trying to keep it normal and professional. I congratulated her after the first inning and otherwise kept to the game, which honestly, like, that was probably my favorite response from any of the players. Like, just, like, yes, it is a big day, but also keeping it normal and professional. Like, I'm sure she honestly like appreciated that more than anything else. And like, it really, okay, before I get into that, the Marlins manager also had like nothing but positive things to say. Clayton McCullough said, I think Jen did a really nice job. I think she was very composed back there. She handled and managed the game very well. And big day for her, big day for Major League Baseball. I congratulated her again on that because it's quite the accomplishment. I wish her the best moving forward as she continues to, I'm sure, hope one day be a full-time permanent big league umpire. So a big day for a lot of people. So let's just think about this for just a couple seconds. So I would argue that the four most qualified people to assess a home plate ump's accuracy within a single game are the respective starting pitchers and GMs. GMs. Why did I just... For a second, I thought that I was talking front office, and I was like, that is not what I meant. If all four of those people had basically no problem with Jen Pawol's performance behind the plate, let alone her presence in the league, why do so many fans, like, in fact, like, all of you guys were pretty refreshingly enthusiastic. I didn't necessarily expect, not because of any of these guys specifically, but just overall, like, I didn't necessarily expect the support to seem so genuine, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. And also her fellow umpires around the field for all three of these games were really supportive. So I just want everyone to do a little walk down memory lane for just 1 second, especially if you're a guy, and just think about what your initial reaction was to hearing about a female umpire umpiring an MLB game. Did you kind of roll your eyes and wonder what her qualifications were? And if you did, because I'm willing to bet that a good many people did have that reaction, I want you to think about the fact that you're more put off by a female umpire than the actual athletes who it was impacting in Sunday's game. And if you're wondering about her resume, ask yourself why your initial assumption was that she might not be qualified. I also will say that I saw a very, very disturbing amount of women tearing Pawol down on Twitter, which really fucking pissed me off. And I highly doubt that the women shitting on her are consuming a women's sports show in any capacity, but on the off chance that this does weasel its way into one of their lives, hi. I don't have the time or the psychology training to help you unpack all of the internalized misogyny that you've got going on, but I'm actually fucking begging you to realize that one woman blazing a trail does not in some way harm you. And if you really need attention this badly, then I would also recommend that you address that with a professional. The last thing I want to say about this is if you're listening and you're going, okay, Sarah, like, get on with it. Respectfully, I'm holding up a huge mirror because then you're also part of the problem. Like, if you're sitting here and you're wondering why I'm spending the first 7 minutes of the show getting like really fucking fired up about this, it's because it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous that in 2025, I have to sit here and be like, women should be able to do a job that men can do. Like, are you kidding? It's absurd. And if you don't think it's absurd, then you need to like reassess a lot of your thoughts. Anyway, getting off my soapbox briefly. I'll come back. Don't worry. More exciting news just from women around the sports world. Monday Night Football over at ESPN, Laura Rutledge has been promoted to help lead that broadcast team. And then Lisa Salters, obviously sideline icon, she has just got a contract extension. So she's now, I believe, the longest contracted Monday Night Football reporter like ever, which is really cool. She's absolutely awesome. Just wanted to take a quick second to highlight both of them because obviously, like, just exciting moves for women and just like them really, like, obviously they've been doing what they do for a while, but just it's always exciting to see not only women being taken more seriously overall, but like them being like, especially like on the journalism side, like female journalists like being rewarded for the work that they put in and like actually recognized for the talent that they have and everything like that. And so even though it's technically not women's sports, it's women in sport. And I think especially, I mean, with everything I've been discussing for the last 2 weeks, I think we now need it most in the MLB, but the NFL is also so incredibly just like full of testosterone. And so I think it is really good that we're getting more female faces on the broadcasts overall, especially on the sideline. I'm really excited to see what the two of them do this season. I feel like that's actually something that would get me to watch a lot more Monday Night Football, to be completely honest. Moving right along here to some NWSL news. We had last week the North Carolina Courage abruptly fire their coach, who's been with the club as the head coach since 2022, so 3 seasons, but he did spend a 4th season as the interim head coach. And then in addition to that, he's been in an assistant role for, I believe, 4 years. So approximately around 8 total seasons with North Carolina Courage. And this is Sean, I can never say his name, Nahas. It's Nahas. Anyway, this man is 47 and he spent around 8 seasons in some sort of coaching capacity with the Courage, with an overall record of 36, 35, 19. And the Courage basically just announced that they were letting him go with a very short statement on Wednesday of last week, so the 6th. And then after that, the club tried to kind of quell questions and everything like that and just say that there were a lot of reasons. But there really still isn't a total update as to what happened. So the statement that they put out was really only 2 sentences, and it just says, the North Carolina Courage have terminated the contract of head coach Sean Nahas effective immediately. The North Carolina Courage remain focused on the continued development of the team and maintaining a professional, competitive environment for players, staff, and supporters. So, I mean, that's just, obviously the biggest, PR response I've ever seen in my entire life. But, I want to know, what happened with this man. I can't tell. And, I think it's also really, really interesting that the press conference was so, allegedly combative. A couple of there's, a bunch of posts on Blue Sky about it, and saying that, communications for the Courage were answering more questions than, the communication staff was actually answering more of the questions, in a sense that they weren't letting the actual GM of the team answer questions and things like that. And so Meg Linen posted on Blue Sky and said the press conference also started with a comment that their priority was the game tomorrow, not the abrupt head coaching change they made without warning. The call has been pretty needlessly combative for a club that specifically added their sporting director to the press conference, which is a really good point. And then she said, I've never really seen anything like that, even during the worst of the NWSL abuse scandal. So it feels really weird. It feels really suspicious. I'm not entirely sure, what is actually going on. I'm sure things will come out, obviously, just as time passes. But whenever something abrupt happens like this and then no one answers questions, it's always okay, obviously something is going on here, and what is it? So that's definitely something to just kind of keep an eye on in the news as that develops and things like that. In terms of NWSL games this weekend, we have 6. So on Friday, August 15th, so that's today. I always record on Wednesday. It throws me off. But so tonight at 7 p.m., you have Washington Spirit versus Racing Louisville, and at 9 Central, Utah Royals versus Angel City. Tomorrow, Saturday, August 16th, at 3 p.m., you'll have Kansas City Current versus Orlando Pride. At 6:30, you'll have North Carolina Courage versus Portland Thorns. And then at 9 p.m., Bay versus San Diego Wave. And then just one game on Sunday, and that will be Gotham FC versus Houston Dash at 3 p.m. So not too many soccer games this weekend, but definitely some that you will be able to watch if you're interested to tune into that. Moving away from the NWSL really quick before we take a brief break, I just wanted to highlight Hezly Rivera. So if anyone remembers from the Paris 2024 Olympics, she was the youngest woman on the U.S. Olympic artistic gymnastics team, And just 1 year later, she's out here winning the U.S. Gymnastics Championships in New Orleans. She had 8 hit routines across 2 days of competition and took home the gold in the all-around uneven bars, balance beam, and on the floor. So it's like obviously just super exciting for her. It's really fun to see her going from a super young alternate, like I wouldn't say inexperienced because she made the Olympic team, but inexperienced in comparison to all of the incredible women that were on that last Olympic team. Just kind of seeing her go from kind of like hanging back and just like watching and like soaking in all the talent and really just like learning as much as she can to then the next year going to the US Championships and winning it all. I think is really fun just to seeing like her progress, but it also like is important to note, not that she wouldn't necessarily have won, but none of the other girls from the Paris 2024 team were at the championship on Sunday. So Simone Biles, obviously, Suni Lee, Jordan Childs, and Jade Carey, none of them were competing in that tournament. Simone and Suni both are taking like a break from elite competition, and Jordan and Jade are still competing in the NCAA and haven't come back to elite gymnastics. So it's really not like super clear what like when any of those Olympic team members will come back. Will like I mean I would assume most of them would. I wouldn't necessarily like rule anyone out, but who might stage a comeback and like when is still definitely TBD, and it means that the field for the World Championships in October is definitely wide open as the US tries to build their roster. That team won't be named for a few weeks, so that's also definitely some news to keep an eye on. But yeah, we are now going to take a brief break for a quick message from our friends at Playback.
Presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together, with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about, win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show.
And welcome back. So we are now going to switch over to some WNBA stuff. And really quick, we're going to start and go back on the sex toy thing for a minute from last week. Just because, well, number one, this is my podcast and I can do what I want. But number two, I've been thinking all week about the fact that I didn't feel like I fully like said what I wanted to say, because I basically just sat here and was like, that's crazy. That's so weird. Like, I need to know like how they're getting them in and why they're doing that, blah, 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 blah. And like, I think the reason that it was like driving me so crazy and like really just like so like shocking, I guess, to me is just because like the entire thing like reeks so incredibly strongly of sexism, and like the fact that people feel the need or desire or urge or whatever it is to throw phallic objects at women literally doing their job is honestly just like unfathomable. And like, I'm not trying to make male insecurity the theme of this episode, but like, can you really not fucking handle women having success? And like, is the success of the WNBA that infuriating? Like, are you really that broken up about not making varsity basketball in high school that you have to go to WNBA games and sexually harass the athletes? Like, that is their workplace. The same way that the fucking, like, that the United Center is the Bulls' workplace. Like, the NBA, like, if this happened in the NBA, if you were throwing shit on an NBA court, oh my God, like, let's just pretend for a second if I, like, threw, like, let's just fuck around. Let's say I throw like a diva cup on the court. Okay, smaller than like this fucking dildo shit that we're dealing with. But like, I can guarantee you that like it would be a whole fucking thing. Like there's just not a world in which that like wouldn't become like a huge fucking deal. And like, it's just so appalling to me that like we have to be sitting here and having these types of conversations like in fucking 2025. Like, in a non-rhetorical sense, it like makes sense because of like the fucking political landscape, but it makes me sick that as much as I can sit here for over 3 months and talk about women's sports every week and celebrate and uplift these stories, which I love doing, like, I don't get me wrong, I'm not like, oh my god, I'm like, this is so hard, like, that's not what I'm saying. It's just so insane to also, at the same time that I'm doing all of this and like trying to uplift women's sport, that sexism and misogyny is actively getting so much worse every single day in Trump's America. And like, I try to make a really concerted effort to keep the show pretty positive and like also still talk about like less pleasant and more political topics, but like, I'm honestly just at my fucking wit's end with some of this shit. And if you're not mad or you don't understand why people are mad, then you're not paying enough attention and you're really not thinking critically. And this goes like also for the Jen Pawol shit that I was talking about before. Like, if you don't understand why women are upset, like, maybe shut the fuck up and like let one of them like speak and tell you why this is insane. Like, if you're sitting here and you don't understand, like, if you know people that like don't understand why everyone's so mad, like, send them this fucking episode, because like like, it's really so incredibly transparent. Like, the WNBA is a thriving business model, and it is like literally just like point blank such a symbol for the success of women in sport and like all of this shit. And so like the fact that like now we can't get through a goddamn game without a fucking dildo on the court, like, are you serious? Like, why can't we just fucking let them do their job? Like, is it really that unbearable to not be like thinking or having like any sort of reference to a man for like an entire women's basketball game that you need to throw like a fucking silicone dick on the court? Are you kidding? Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Okay, that was my second soapbox of the episode. We are gonna move on and do some obviously more WNBA news, but the Athletic put out updated WNBA power rankings, and so I just wanted to go through those really quick and talk about 3 like kind of cool standout situations. So number 1, Kelsey Mitchell is filling the point guard void, and obviously a week ago the Indiana Fever were on a 5-game win streak and like doing so even without Caitlin Clark, but now they're without all 3 of their point guards after injuries to both Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald last week, I believe. And so now the point guard duties are falling to Kelsey Mitchell, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexi Hull. And Kelsey Mitchell really stepped up well for the Fever in their game against the Sky. And she's the fastest player in the league with the ball in her hands and can move really, really well in transition, especially if she has someone with her. So it was really great for the Fever to kind of see her stepping into that role, obviously, because, I mean, someone had to do it. So luckily they had Kelsey Mitchell there and like ready to do so. But then the kind of second standout is kind of just the success that the Aces have had since changing their starting lineup. So after trading for Nalissa Smith, the Aces starting 5 of Chelsea Gray, Jewel Lloyd, Jackie Young, Smith, and Asia Wilson had a net rating of plus 18.1 points per 100 possessions. But the team still was going 4-3 with Smith in the starting lineup. And since the switch to having Becky Hammond replace Jewel Lloyd I'm fully reading this wrong. Becky Hammond replaced Jewel Lloyd with Kirsten Bell. And so now that like unit has a little bit more like power, and since that switch, the Aces have gone 6-1. So that's obviously a very much needed kind of switch for them over there. Like the last couple of weeks, it's really just been Asia Wilson absolutely killing it, but not necessarily a ton of assistance from her other teammates over in Vegas. So that's definitely a step in the right direction for them over there. And third one was obviously Dejanay Carrington. We talked about that trade last week. I was so thrilled to see her going to the Lynx. I still am. Since trading for Dejanay, the Lynx are 3-0 with wins at Seattle and New York, and then a win at home over Washington. And Dejanay is really good at perimeter defense, and she's had 6 steals and 2 blocks through the 3 games that she's been in Minnesota. So it's been really exciting for Minnesota, who didn't really have like a guard that was putting pressure on the basket, but because Dejanay is so good at driving and offensive rebounding, she's able to apply that rim pressure. So obviously overall, like I think we talked about the Carrington trade last week and specifically in relation to the trade deadline, but in this sense, like obviously just now some time removed away from the trade line, actually seeing the results of that trade in action, it was a really, really smart decision on the part of the Lynx to make all those moves and snatch Dejanay up because she is a very talented player. So those were kind of the 3 standouts, but in terms of the power rankings, I'm just going to kind of go through an order. And again, there's 13 teams. There wasn't too much movement necessarily. So this week, where the power rankings are, Minnesota is number 1, Atlanta is 2nd, 3rd is New York, 4th is Phoenix, 5th is Indiana, 6th is Vegas, 7th is Golden State, 8th is Los Angeles, 9th is Washington, 10th is Seattle, 11th is Dallas, 12th is Connecticut, and Chicago is 13th. So 1 and 2 stayed the same. It's been Minnesota and Atlanta up at the top for a while. Indiana dropped from 3rd to 5th, and then New York went from 4th to 3rd, and Phoenix went from 5th to 4th. So within the top 5, you've got Minnesota and Atlanta staying the same. New York and Phoenix moved up, and Indiana dropped from 3rd to 5th. And then on like the back half of everything, Chicago's been just chilling down there at the bottom. And the Wings and the Sun kind of go back and forth for 11 and 12, but the bottom 3 are pretty consistently Dallas, Connecticut, and Chicago. And then 6 through 10 also had a good amount of movement. The Aces moved 2 places from 8th last week to 6th this week. Golden State moved from 9th last week to 7th this week. And then LA dropped from 6th to 8th, and Washington rose just 1 spot from 10th to 9th. And the biggest drop, I believe, was Seattle from 7th to 10th. Yeah, that's how numbers work. That was the biggest drop. So obviously, lots of stuff happening there. We are kind of getting towards the end of that season, which was, I honestly like kind of didn't even realize how close we were until yesterday, as I record earlier this week. Let's just say that when the Minnesota Lynx clinched their playoff berth for this year. So they weren't actually even playing on Tuesday, but they were still the first W team this year to clinch a playoff spot with the Dallas Wings 81-80 victory over the Indiana Fever, which also the Wings pulling out a victory over the Fever is crazy, and also even crazier when you think about the fact that it was 80-81. But Minnesota has won 4 WNBA titles, and this will be the 16th postseason appearance for the Lynx, and 14 of their 16 playoff appearances have been in the last 15 years. So needless to say, they're really on like a great little run here. And overall, the W season will end on September 11th, and 8 teams will make those playoffs. So this year, the finals will be best of 7 for the first time, but the first round is a best of 3 series, and then the semifinals are best of 5 like usual. So that'll be kind of nice to have more action. I mean, like in theory, obviously it's like as needed, but to like hopefully have even more games and kind of like a longer playoff with that schedule change. One kind of last WNBA thing I wanted to talk about. I mentioned in the power rankings how the Aces have been kind of on a little upward trajectory, and a lot of that has been thanks to A'ja Wilson, who has just been absolutely crushing it all season. But most incredibly, she was the first player in the W to record over 30 points and 20 rebounds in a single game. And this was with her performance on August 10th, which was their Sunday game. So she, like, that's just like an absolute crazy stat line, like, first of all. But the Aces beat the Sun 94-86, and overall A'ja had 32 points, 5 assists, and 20 rebounds, which is nearly as many rebounds as the entire Connecticut team as a whole. As a whole, they had 23 rebounds, and A'ja had 20. So just kind of funny to think about it like that. She is an absolute icon. I love her. I feel like anytime she comes up on this show, it's just me being like, I love A'ja Wilson. She's currently the W single season leader for single season points, and she had 1,021 in 2024. And she's also the leader for single season rebounds with 451 last season. And most points in a single game in the W, she is tied for that record, and she recorded 53 points in 2023. So she's just like on fire as usual. This year, she's averaging 21.8 points and 9.2 rebounds per game, which is slightly down from her career high of 26.9 points and 9.8 rebounds last season. But I mean, hey, like, she's a 3-time MVP and 7-time All-Star. Like, sometimes you have a year that's slightly worse. Like, I'm really, like, A'ja Wilson's never going to be someone that I'm sitting here concerned about. But I do think it was a pretty impressive feat that she accomplished over the Sun. I kind of like love just like looking at all the pictures of her, like, from this game specifically. She was just out there, like, and I mean, it's not necessarily like the craziest stat if you think about the fact that, like, okay, yeah, it, like, happens in the NBA, but like, I feel like a lot of people forget that the games are different. Like, the W games are shorter, and like, there are like actually a lot of discrepancies, and so this is a really exciting thing to kind of like see happen. And I always think it's cool when like sport, like, I don't know, I kind of, before I really realized, number one, how much fucking inequality and inequity there is in sport, but like when I was younger, I didn't really think that I would be like witnessing necessarily a ton of like sports history, just because like all the male sports leagues are so well established. Like, before I like knew better, I kind of just assumed I wouldn't like be seeing history, but like that type of shit is history. That's like shit that they're gonna have be like a trivia question a couple years down the line. Like, who was the first like WNBA player to do XYZ? Like, and then we're all gonna know. We're gonna know it was A'ja. So I just think shit like that is really cool. But before we wrap up, I'm going to talk really quick about the games this weekend in the W. There are a bunch. There are 11. So you've got 5 on Friday, 1 on Saturday, 5 on Sunday. It is still continuing on with Rivals Week. So first game on Friday, we've got actually 3 at 6:30 Central. So you've got the Mystics at the Fever, the Valkyries at the Sky, and the Sparks at the Wings, all at 6:30 on Friday. And then at 9 p.m. on Friday, Seattle at Atlanta, and Las Vegas at Phoenix. There's just one game Saturday, and that's going to be at 1 p.m. Central, and that will be New York at Minnesota. And then Sunday, we've got 5 games, kind of all scattered pretty evenly throughout the day. At noon Central, you have Indiana at Connecticut, followed by Los Angeles at Washington at 2 p.m. At 2:30, there will be the Wings versus the Aces. Sunday on, oh my gosh, still on Sunday at 5 o'clock, you'll have Phoenix at Seattle, and then final game will be at 7:30, and that will be Atlanta at Golden State. So lots and lots of good stuff to be watching this weekend. You can obviously tune in to any of the 11 WNBA games, and then, of course, as we talked about a little bit earlier, the NWSL games as well. But that is everything I have for you this week. Make sure you return, as always, next week. We will have some more fantastic news. But until next time, that is all I've got. Have a good one.